mind, but it might be attached to that, depending on the conversation you had about it, and what you actually did with that, the words that you used, if it felt like the right words or not. It might be connected. But in a way, it doesn't matter if it's connected or not connected at that level, because implicitly, you now have that information. It's stored, it's there in some way, and you can provoke that consciously. You can consciously put it there. You can consciously make it up again. It's a choice. So, another way to think about that is like by putting it in an environment, or putting it in a place, like that's a deliberate choice for what to do with the need. Because you're choosing the sense of container that probably, I would say probably for 80% of you, is going to in some way let you feel safe, or secure, or protected, or in a confident ground that you know in some way, where it's safe to make a decision to do something different. It's safe to try out new behavior, safe to change in some way. So here we have 5 minutes, so if anybody wants to say a little bit about, now that we're back in this mode, what you learned, what you noticed, anything you'd like to share with the group about it?
Super fun. Super interesting. I love being able to watch my partner just draw and then retreat into herself and look for something deep and then have it explode back out onto the paper. It was magical to witness.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Anybody else?
I actually like to clarify something.
Yes.
Just a comment you just made. I thought, I must not have understood this exercise properly. The place of the environment that we were locating emotionally, was it a preferred place? Was it the environment that the emotion lived in, or is it an environment that we were providing to?
It was whatever was needed by the emotion.
Let me rephrase. So what I did was I drew the environment that the emotion lives in, and then, which is not a very hospitable, lovely environment, and then put in the things that it needs when it's in that environment. But just your previous comment spurred me that, perhaps that was to create a holding, safe environment for this emotion.
Did you put safety into the environment?
I don't know. I'd have to contemplate that more.
So, rather than think about it in terms of opposites in the way that we're talking about it, just let wipe the slate clean and come back and think about it again. So, here's the emotion. I'm going to give it a place and an environment to be in, and I'm going to give it whatever is needed. So would that change the environment that you put it in, or not? If you were So then you might want to do the exercise again and try putting that emotion in an environment that meets its needs. And that would be quite a different experience.
Yeah.
Thank you. Anybody else?
The emotion needs something that it cannot get, or it's not possible.
It's what?
When the emotion, for example,
Yeah.
when in case of loss, when that emotion needs something, or that person, or a conversation, or something that it's not possible to get. And for example, the client wants to give the emotion what the emotion wants, and that's that person or that conversation. What would you do?
Give it to the person.
But it's not possible.
Yeah, sure, you can draw anything you want in that environment. So you can personally that. Just put it there. So here's an example. Actually, I'll probably show you more of this later. It's exactly that issue. Client comes for a totally other reason than what appears to way forward in her life is grief. And what she really needs is to be able to talk to the person. So first we did it in session in the way that we're talking about, and then she thought about what more. And she said, well, there's no grade, there's no marker, we scattered his ashes. I have no place, no way to go. So we made the place of the art. And I said, so in your heart, where is that place? And she went, oh, it's right there. And it had to do with an implicit memory from her childhood. And that's where she went, and she talked. We were talking about father. So she went and she just sat there with her journal and talked to him and had a conversation with him in a spot that would be not meaningful to anybody but her and him. And so he's not in the way that we usually think of alive. He's not present and alive in that way, but he's very alive in her heart. And very alive in her mind and her thoughts. And so that was like finding the right place, environment, space, giving it space in the way that we were talking about. So it's always possible in the art world to do something because we're working with creation and imagination. Always. There's no limit. So that's a great question. Thank you. Anybody else?
I just had a, we're talking about saying about doing this with younger people. The two things, what the emotion needs, there's kind of two interpretations. One is, like if I drew an emotion, if I drew a landscape that's a beach, there's certain environmental things that have to exist.
No, they don't. It's an imagination.
Right.
Of yours.
But when you say what's needed by that emotion, you know, you can take a literal interpretation or an abstract interpretation, depending how you represent the emotion.
That's right.
So if you were doing it with younger people, would you clarify that more? No?
They'll just do it. They don't think about it as much as we do, unless they're kind of at that age where realism is just starting to set in and they're starting to get self-judgmental.
That's what I work with middle school.
Yeah, so then you might think about what are we talking about in the classroom or in counseling?
Art class.
We're talking about an art class, right? So then if you're going to do this kind of work, you need to actually set it up step by step with a lot of permission giving in your relationship to them in the class about being mindful. So I would start by teaching them some kind of mindfulness practices where they learn to just be with what is. And then I would do, so Susan, you and I talked about the project, you know? So Susan and I just finished a project in her art class this last winter, and one of the ways that she started the class, pretty much every class was with reflective writing. And it wasn't about a theme, it was just about the way that we sit with our breath and rest and be with what is. She give them a piece of paper, they could take a colored pencil, and it was like write for 3 minutes about anything that's in your mind. And I might be putting words in your mouth, but you called it downloading your brain. Language like that.
Sometimes right there.
Sometimes I mean prompts.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So prompts could be any kind of a prompt, but it's that permission giving to just be with whatever is there, and then it's private. They might hand it in to you for a journal, but if they don't want you to read it, they hold the paper over it and you don't read it. So there's an aspect of trust and bonding that's happening between you and them. Then, if they have some experience of that, you can ask them to go to an emotion and work with it directly. And you can prompt it from the art, like the kind of color you work with, the kind of line you give it, the kind of shape you give it. It becomes an exploration rather than a problem to be solved. So it's that attitude of inquiry that you want to take care of. So if they need it to be realistically looking, and you actually don't want to engage that part of their mind, you can say, okay, this is an exercise in abstract landscape, or surrealism, or, so the year before I did a surrealistic project like that with another classroom.
Yeah.
So how you frame it depends on who you're talking to and what their needs are. And that's really different developmentally. Be different with seniors, and it's 20 after 12.